Welcome, everyone. Today is International Data Center Day. It is a day that 7 by 24 started many years ago to help educate younger people about careers in data centers. On behalf of the Independent Data Center Alliance, we are really proud to be able to bring to you today's program, which is a live virtual tour of a demo data center. Now, if you don't know about the Independent Data Center Alliance, we are an independent consortium of globally operated data centers. The organization is founded by Bluebird Network, DataGrid, Main Cubes, and iMiller Public Relations. In addition to the founding members, we do have a great group of members who support the organization. Those include TSP and NYI, who also have facilities in New York and Chicago. We also have a variety of partners, including Salute Mission Critical, AGL Media Group and AGL Magazine, Data Center Post, Cloud Post, Telecom Newsroom, and many others. So if you are interested in the Independent Data Center Alliance, we do encourage you to visit us and check us out. We are on the web. And before I hand over our program to our fantastic hosts over at CCI, I do want to encourage you to take down your questions and put them into our question panel, which is the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. There is a questions area there. We will have a question and answer period following the demo data center tour. And so we want to make sure that we get all of your questions answered then. All righty. So if you have any questions to me, I'm your host. My name is Alyssa Miller. I'm with iMiller Public Relations. I'm also one of the co-founders of the Independent Data Center Alliance, and we welcome you today. And without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Tim Morgan, who is a partner of CCI, and Scott Cockerham, who is the CEO, and these are our hosts for today's program. Thank you, gentlemen.
Good morning, Alyssa. Thank you very much. Welcome to Critical Components and the International Data Center Day. Is it Data Center Day?
I think it's actually International Data Center Day, but we can take a poll later on in the chat box.
So I don't think there's any difference between a data center and a data center, but what is a data center? The data center really evolves around the computer. The data center is the house for the computer. And what the computer needs to operate is uninterrupted power, cooling, connectivity so that information can flow in and out of the data center. And right behind us is a version of a small data center. This data center houses the computer equipment, and what we're going to talk about today is how we deliver reliable cooling and power so the data center is always available. We're very concerned about reliability, availability, and maintainability so that the data center never goes down, so that when you Google something, instant message something, buy something from Amazon, those transactions are never interrupted.
So you may work 40 hours a week, the data center works 168 hours a week. This never turns off.
We're going to discuss the heartbeat of the data center, which is the UPS system, the uninterrupted power supply. For this, we're going to step into the other room. The UPS system is made up of components that will provide uninterrupted power. And what happens is we have electrical power that comes into a rectifier charger that takes your AC current and changes it to DC current, and this charges a battery. The battery is the key to provide the uninterrupted power, because from that battery we flow to an inverter that changes the DC current back to AC current, and this feeds your computer. So in the data center, we're going to talk about how power gets to the UPS system and what happens to the power after the UPS system. an example of our UPSs, we have many UPSs here, and our live data center that protects our facility and our data is here to my left. In the back of the room, we have a large UPS system as well. And these are examples of the uninterrupted power supplies. One nice thing about this particular brand, it's modular and scalable. Tim is going to show how the system operates inside the data center.
What Scott was saying about this UPS is that it's unique in the fact that it is scalable and modular. Let me show you what he means. This is a 40 kW UPS that is built of 5 10 kW power modules. Now, I just said 5 10 kW modules for 40 kW UPS. That's because I have one more than I need in here. So let me show you if I have a problem with one of these modules. I can simply take the module out of my UPS while the UPS is hot, while it is up and running. So I still have 1, 2, 3, 4 modules. I have a 40 kW UPS. So I'm going to slide this back in. Note that I'm doing this hot as electrical power is flowing to the machine. Additionally, Scott talked about batteries, and batteries being the way that power is delivered inside or from a UPS. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 shelves or separate strings of batteries available. And if I take a battery out, all I have done is taken that string of batteries, that shelf, offline. And I can do this once again while the UPS is hot. I just removed a battery from a hot UPS. I just installed a battery in a hot UPS. I can replace all of these batteries inside of approximately 5 minutes, and I can add or subtract power modules or batteries to my UPS as needed.
As we had discussed, the UPS system is the heartbeat of the data center. The UPS system is fed from utility power, and utility power is usually designated as a transformer that would feed a main piece of switchgear. This switchgear is what will eventually feed the UPS system, but first we have to have a power generation plant to back up the UPS system. The UPS system has a finite amount of battery runtime, but the battery runtime is there to allow us to get the generators started as our redundancy and our backup to the utility. So the utility feeds an automatic transfer switch known as an ATS. So this ATS has 2 sources of power to it. Normal power comes from utility through the automatic transfer switch. When utility fails and this power goes away, the generator is sent a signal from the automatic transfer switch. The generator starts up just like turning the key to your automobile. When the generator comes up to voltage and frequency, the automatic transfer switch realizes that it has an alternative source, and the transfer switch will switch to the generator, and this feeds the emergency panel. The emergency panel feeds all the critical equipment in the facility, especially the UPS system. The UPS system then provides the uninterrupted power to the computers, but this emergency power panel also has to feed the air conditioning systems to keep the computer room cool. We're going to take a look now at the power generation plant that we have in our facility.
I'm standing behind Critical Components office right now by our generator. Now, most of you may know what a generator is. Perhaps you have a small one in your garage to power the refrigerator when the power goes out. Our generator is sized to supply power to our entire office and our entire data center in the event that utility power goes away. You see, in the data center, there's 2 main feeds of power. There's utility power, which in the case of Georgia comes from Georgia Power, and there's generator power, which is our prime backup should power go out. The generator is sized to handle the entire data center, all of the lights, all of the office, all of emergency power, and all of the mechanical systems. For example, the outdoor heat exchanger, which we have powering the air conditioner in our data center. You may be asking why the UPS is the heartbeat of the data center when the generator can supply power for hours, days, or even weeks, depending upon its fuel source. I have a 24-hour sub-base fuel tank on this carrying diesel fuel. I could also have a propane tank external to the generator, or I could have a natural gas line, which would theoretically give me unlimited power while I wait for utility to come back. So again, why is the UPS the heartbeat of the data center when it's the generator that can power it for as long as you need when the power goes off? And that's because when the power goes off, before the generator comes on, there is a delay. Let me demonstrate. Cut the power. We don't have AC power right now to our office or our data center, and yet the lights are on in there, and that is because right now the UPS is carrying the load. It will continue to do so until the generator comes on. Let's see how long that takes. Okay. We're going to try to start that one more time. There we go. So now, after that delay, the generator has come on and the generator is powering our data center. But had we not had the UPS, every single one of our servers would have shut down. And it's not a matter of them coming immediately back on when there's power. They lose whatever they were doing when they shut down, and they take time to come back up, and they have to be reprogrammed. So while this generator can keep me going for the next several days if I needed to, if I had lost that 10 seconds, everybody in my data center would be scrambling, and you would have trouble surfing the web right now.
Now that you've seen power generation, you understand that we have the diesel generator to back up the entire facility, and we have the UPS system to provide the battery buffer, the battery runtime for the generator to start. From the UPS system, we have to get the power to the computer equipment. We have a number of ways of doing that power distribution. We have the most common way to distribute that power is typically underneath a raised floor. The raised floor has whips that go underneath the floor and then plug into a plug strip like you see here that would be inside of the rack equipment. This goes into a traditional power distribution unit with a traditional panel board that many of us are familiar with. Most people are familiar with the square D name and the breakers that are in the traditional power distribution unit that you can see here. We have other distribution methodologies that allows us to distribute the power more safely and with PPP, which is personal protective equipment, and arc flash in mind for the safety of the electricians and the people working in the data center. So a number of manufacturers have come up with different ways to distribute the power to try to make it safer, easier, and more reliable. This is one of the advances in modular distribution where the breaker and whip assembly are all in one system. This system goes through this distribution center. This goes up into the above the rack and into a UL rated distribution channel. So this cord would be up here and then plug into the plug strips that you see here. And those plugs are what power the equipment. These plug strips are inside of each rack, and there's usually two feeds, an A and a B from separate systems, again, to provide an even higher level of reliability. The other way to power the data center is the overhead distribution that you can see here from Starline busway, which is overhead distribution. Again, this allows us to easily put in a box with a cord coming down that again is going to power the electrical plug strip for the computers in the rack. So everything that we're doing here is to provide electrical distribution right from the UPS system to the racks through this guy to this guy to provide the power to the data.
And just to show you how this works, to insert power or to add power or capacity to your Starline busway system or any other manufacturer's overhead busway system, I would simply take this box, put it into the open channel of the busway above me, turn it, and then lock it into place. This box can have whatever combination of circuit breakers or fuses that you need to power the data center. It may or may not have a cord off it. If you look above us, you'll see we've got cords coming off of ours because of where the busway is. Often, however, the busway is directly over a row of racks, and this box would look as such. It wouldn't have a cord. It would sit right above the racks, and the pigtail from the in-rack PDU would plug directly into it. It's worth noting that expansion can be handled while your data center is hot if you use an overhead busway system. I can install one of these boxes without turning power off to my data center. That's extremely important to data and data center operators, because shutting one down is the way they can lose their jobs.
So now we've talked about the data center from a holistic standpoint. We have the generator outside that is going to come on if power were to fail. That feeds the emergency panel. The emergency panel feeds our UPS system. The other thing the emergency panel feeds is the air conditioning, and every air conditioner has an outside heat exchanger that you saw in Tim's presentation outside. What we haven't talked about is the connectivity of the computers to the outside world. I have Daryl Berman here to talk about the distribution of the digital information flowing on the network cables out to the world. So you have to have connectivity, and that's where we have other products that will allow you to put in your fiber and data cabling. Daryl?
Thank you, Scott. As we look above the eco aisle here, which is the containment pod, we see a high capacity cable management system from Snake Tray. This particular product is a Series 801 Mega Snake product, which is available. It looks like about 20 other different solutions that are available. What's different about it is it has a patented rail system that allows you to drop accessories, devices, and additional power and electrical boxes without having to reconfigure. So that's through a horizontal double wire system that's on top. The biggest advantage of this type of system is when you put something in your data center overhead or under the floor, you need to be able to configure it and put it down so that it meets the codes. In this case, we have a unique snake nut system that allows you to use the threaded rods to easily install this. In fact, it's a lot easier to install it with this without having to build a trapeze or a bracket. What we did on the top is this is a cable tray on the top that's about 18 inches wide. And as you look in the two threaded rods coming down, you will see a piece of unistrut underneath it supporting it. That's typically what's required when you put this type of cable tray in, but to prevent the labor, which could be an additional hour, to save about 90% of the time, you have these nuts that attach to a threaded rod system. You place them, you insert them, and you tighten them up, and it saves a lot of time when you put this system together. Now, this particular Mega Snake system consists of 4 10-foot sticks, which is a traditional standard size. It's supported at about 4 to 5 feet apart and can be supported at 10 feet with a special bracket without deflection. So those are a couple of things going on. There are 4 10-foot sticks. There are 4 90-degree corners. And the biggest advantage of this is that it's pre-configured at the factory. So unlike your traditional wire basket that you may cut because it's flexible in the field. This actually has a pre-configured turn, so you don't need to make the cuts inside. If you did make those cuts, you'd have to take it outside of the data center to prevent dust and dirt from the data center, which is why it's prevented. So in addition to that, the patented dual horizontal rail system on top allows you to put in special pathways that you can identify with special colors. There are 8 colors here. That's a bracket that is attached without reconfiguring the product. Over here, you'll see a cable drop off or rainfall, as it's called. And on the side, you'll see a number of power distribution areas that allow you to add without having to add extra racks and cabinets. And that's a little overview of the cable management tray from Snake Tray. I'm going to give it back to you, Scott.
All right.
I think
We're back live.
I think we're ready to open this up to some questions. One of the things that you may have seen in the background was the outside heat exchanger for the air conditioning system. Now, there's many different types of UPSs. There's small single-phase UPSs. There's traditional UPSs. There's modular UPSs. There's rotary UPSs. There's different generators. There's natural gas generators. There's diesel generators. There's a number of different ways of configuring this, and all this different infrastructure equipment is what we provide to give the data center and the computers a good place to live, that they're going to always have power and cooling. We're going to step into the other room and look forward to taking some questions. I was hoping that our camera guys could pan over to Tim and take a look at the different battery technologies. Just like there's different UPS technologies, there's a number of different battery technologies. Right here, we have a multitude of battery technologies that Tim can walk you through.
Sure. I've got a UPS right here. I've got a UPS at the other end. And then I have 3 different battery technologies right here. What we're looking at here is the most traditional type of battery. These are 2-volt, basically car batteries. And they're all running in series in a single string to give me power for that period of time I need until a generator comes on when utility goes away. This is the most common type of battery I've been selling for the 21 years I've been in this industry. The next, call it innovation that we had maybe 10 years ago, and I showed you these earlier, are the scalable modular batteries. These are a valve-regulated battery. These are in chemical composition very similar to the first bit of battery I showed you. However, instead of having a single string where all the batteries are strapped together, what we have is multiple battery strings. These are what I pulled out earlier from the data center. This is what I can change hot. So this was a major innovation, and for about 10 years, a large number of UPSs across many manufacturers' product portfolios utilize this type of technology because of the ease with which data center operators can make sure that they take care of their clients. The most recent type of battery typology that has been taking over are lithium-ion batteries. Now, I'm back to a single string of batteries in a cabinet. However, I generally have multiple cabinets with my large UPSs, so I have redundancy. Lithium-ion batteries are what power my car. They're what power Scott's cell phone. The reason the technology has taken off like it has is because lithium-ion batteries tend to be about half the weight and half the size of more traditional batteries. They can be discharged between 10 and 100 times more often without degrading their ability to power a load. And they last somewhere between 2 and 4 times as long as a more standard battery. So as cost has come down and safety has gone up, we're finding in our large products that lithium-ion batteries now represent more than 50% of the batteries sold into giant data centers. So if you have any battery questions, please add those to the lineup. I'm going to go sit with Scott and we'll answer anything that you have.
Thank you, Tim.
Excellent. Want to give me a
Hey,
thumbs
Alyssa.
up? You can hear me, guys. Great. Excellent. Okay. Fantastic. We do have a couple of questions. And just a reminder to our viewers, thank you again for tuning in. Thank you for your patience. And if you have any questions, you could just type them into your questions box. I do see that we have a couple of questions here. So the first one is, how do you recommend companies determine the location of a data center?
The things that go into determining the location of a data center. Obviously, real estate cost is one, but that's not the top priority. The priority is probably connectivity. The biggest data center market in the country is outside of Northern Virginia. The connectivity there is probably the greatest connectivity in our country. And then that's May West is where a lot of the cables come into this country, and from there they're distributed to other major cities. And it also comes in Northern California. So there are the two largest data center networks in the country because of connectivity.
So despite the fact that land there is more expensive than it is almost anywhere else in the country, the connectivity is so good, and the access to clients. The government in Northern Virginia, big tech in Northern California is there, so it makes sense to put a data center in there, even if you have to spend 10x for your land.
But there are other considerations. One of the other big considerations is the cost of electricity. Data centers use a lot of electricity. So places like Georgia, where we have inexpensive power, is also another great place to locate your data center. So we have connectivity. The other thing would be cooling. Cooling represents a big portion of the electrical usage, and we get some free cooling in different parts of the country, different parts of the globe. So sometimes we'll take into consideration how we can cool the data center most effectively.
And one more final consideration, of course, is weather. You're going to
Absolutely.
find a lot fewer or far fewer data centers in Tornado Alley than you are in spots where the climate tends to be temperate and the weather tends to be mild. If there's a consistent threat of severe weather, it's not an ideal place to locate your data center.
Right.
Great question. Thank you.
We do have another question that came in from one of our viewers, and I apologize. The question is about Li-ion batteries or Li-ion batteries, right? Do you feel that Li-ion batteries add unnecessary risk to DC operations? Is the increased risk of Li-ion simply a fallacy at this point? And do you have a take on any extra fire suppression tactics that you would recommend with Li-ion batteries?
So the lithium ion batteries, as Tim discussed here, are a new product offering in the data center. When I say new, 5 years. And they were slow to emerge because some of the bad publicity that you got from lithium ion batteries. These lithium ion batteries are a whole lot different than the ones in a hoverboard, and they have a lot of controls built into them. I would say there's still, I still have some concerns about lithium ion, but not from a fire standpoint or a safety standpoint. I think we've passed all of that. My concern is simply, what do we do with them at the end of the life cycle? I don't think we have enough information. Right now, the process of with batteries are one of the most recycled products on the planet. So when you have regular lead acid batteries, we know from they're going to go back to the battery manufacturer and will be recycled. Right now, the disposal of lithium ion batteries is to burn them, to incinerate them. Not sure if that's the best thing in the world. So that's my only concern. When they first came out, we definitely had concerns about fire because of what we heard in the industry from some of the cheaper lithium ion batteries.
But and the phones. I mean, they got a huge bad rap from phones bursting into flames on airplanes. It is a different chemical composition, but it can be hard to get that into people's heads.
So I think the safety measures have been taken into place. But again, we have the ability to, and it's different depending on the size of the UPS system, the runtime, there's different considerations, and it's nice to have different options when you're looking at your batteries. And you can make educated decision based on life cycle, cost, and footprint.
Right. And, you know, and I got to say that you brought up something that's really an important element, is the environmental and the sustainability aspect of data centers. And I know the industry is getting better. Before we go on to our next question, I wanted to ask the question about, you know, how are you advising the approach to data center design with sustainability as a best practice in mind?
You're the greenest person here. That's definitely your question.
Well, unfortunately, most of the alternative sources of energy come with a price tag. There are a lot of major data center owners that have gone and built solar farms and things like that.
Hydrogen fuel cell farms. I mean, there's technology out there. It's just
there's technology out there, and every year it seems like the UPS systems get more and more energy efficient. And the returns there are pretty much maximized. The typical UPS system is 97, 98% efficient. So where we've really been looking at efficiencies is on the air conditioning side, trying to do direct and indirect cooling. And that's where I mentioned sometimes the outdoor air temperature. If you have a dry, cool climate, you can use outside air to temper the building and save some energy. All of the big users and data center owners are looking at sustainability and trying to improve those things. And the 7x24 has been a leader in looking at that and trying to achieve better efficiencies.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So you had mentioned UPS in your answer, which is a great segue to the next question we have from one of our viewers. And he apologizes because he joined late and you may have covered this, but are rotary UPS systems used in data centers?
Absolutely. Rotary UPS systems are much more popular in Europe. They haven't had the same
acceptance, adoption. Yeah, good word, adoption here in the United States.
In the U.S., but the data centers are getting larger and larger. And one of the big advantages of the diesel rotary UPS system is that we can provide that at a medium voltage, at a higher voltage. The higher the voltage, the less the ampacities. When you're designing these giant data centers, we often run into banging our heads against a 4,000 amp 480 volt switchgear is basically the largest building block that you can get at 480 volts is 4,000 amps. If you bring power in at a higher voltage, 4160 or higher, you can get more power to the building. And I think that you're going to see more and more diesel rotary UPS systems deployed in the US because the size of the data centers are getting larger and larger.
And I'll say, when Scott says a diesel rotary UPS, he's talking about a very large system where the diesel generator, like what I showed you outside, is coupled with a continuously rotating flywheel, so that when the power goes off, instead of battery and a static switch in a UPS giving you your power, you're actually getting power from the kinetic energy, the inertia of the spinning wheel, until the generator can come back on. Another type of rotary UPS, and you may have been inferring this in your question, whoever asked out there in TV land, is simply a smaller rotary system that could take the place of a battery cabinet. So I could use a UPS like what you saw in my office. I could take away the batteries there, and I could replace it with a cabinet with just a constantly spinning cylinder. And that cylinder is going to continue to spin from the kinetic energy when the power goes off. And again, I just need it to spin at a certain number of RPMs for a few seconds until my generator can turn on. It is definitely a minority of what's going on in the data center, but there's more in Europe. There will be more here. We tend to lag them in terms of environmental, and this does harken back to your prior question. It is probably a greener way to design your data center.
And just to be clear, that would be the diesel rotary UPS system. The flywheel as a battery, I think we'll see, that has never really been adopted mainstream either. And I think there's less likelihood of that now with the advent of the lithium ion battery. So when I think about rotary, I think less about the battery rotating system, I think we've kind of passed that because of lithium ion, but I do think that our industry will gain greater acceptance of the big, large diesel rotary UPS systems that gives you can put it outside, it doesn't take up footprint inside. And all of these things that we discussed today, the UPS system, the distribution, the power generation, any of those things could be a whole nother program, and we'd love to discuss them in more detail if anyone has that interest.
You got it. Excellent. Okay, we have a couple more questions here, so bear with me.
Great.
And thank you to folks. You can still put your questions into the question box. The next question is about generators, right? So, if you could install either type, do you prefer natural gas or diesel? And this particular listener would like for you to speak to current trends, the initial cost, maintenance, and reasons for that preference, if you wouldn't mind.
Be happy to.
What's your, I mean, I don't even know if we'll answer the same way.
Well, I absolutely emphatically prefer diesel.
We will answer the same way.
Okay, and the reason I want diesel is I control my own destiny. Your fuel source is your responsibility. I've got a fuel tank with diesel fuel in it. I know that I'm responsible for keeping that fuel clean and available. If I rely on natural gas, I am protecting myself from a utility failure of the power utility company. That's why I'm buying the generator. If I have a natural disaster where both the electrical infrastructure and the natural gas infrastructure is disrupted, I no longer have natural gas to my generator. So I prefer diesel because I control my own destiny. Now, from the green standpoint, I prefer the natural gas. It's a more cleaner burning fuel system, but the cost of a natural gas generator can be 2, 3, even 4 times as much money as a diesel generator when you get into large sizes. Any significant data center, a diesel generator will be much more cost effective. And again, you control your own destiny.
It's simply more reliable. I mean, there are biofuel generators available where you have a natural gas line and a diesel generator, but the product set is smaller. The cost can be prohibitive. So when you're designing and developing, you're almost always at the moment going to go with diesel fuel. And it is what I prefer, despite the fact that it is a little less green. I do have to keep the lights on for my clients.
Right, right. And, speaking of green, we do have a question here about fuel cells, right? So when do you foresee fuel cells being more deployed on a more regular basis? This particular viewer believes that Bloom fuel cells have been deployed by eBay as an example. And in your opinion, what are the positives and negatives with fuel cell deployments? And thank you.
Well, I actually have a little bit of Bloom Energy stock, full disclosure. But I'm a little nervous about fuel cells. A good 10, 12 years ago, one manufacturer that we represent came out with an offer of hydrogen fuel cells in the very small power capacities, 10, 20, 30 kW. And aside from the fact that they were perhaps 10 times as large in the space that they required for deployment, they were also 10 to 20 times as expensive as batteries. Now that's coming down, but still, where am I going to put the hydrogen fuel cells? I mean, everybody here has heard of an H-bomb, so you then get that same sort of fear that you get about lithium batteries. Like, what am I actually deploying for my data center? And the cost is so high that I think that there is, I mean, people like Bloom are looking into fuel cells and do have a product offer, but I think we're going to see more things like lithium ion batteries. That cost has come down so low, or like supercapacitors. There's car companies that are designing around supercapacitors now instead of lithium ion batteries. We'll see if it comes to pass, but Fisker has been talking about that for a few years. And fuel cells are also already used in some of our air conditioners to keep small parts running in the time between when your utility power goes off and your generator comes on. Your full air conditioner isn't usually on the UPS because it's such a dirty load, but there are pieces within the air conditioner that you would like to see operated, and actual supercapacitors can be installed within the air conditioning unit to allow those particular components to keep running, to make the unit come on more cleanly or more easily and reliably when the generator comes back. So I'm not really in the fuel cell camp, but again, I've got a little bit of bloom, so I'm rooting for them.
Awesome. And you touch upon the lithium batteries again. We had a listener here, and if you remember, International Data Center Day is also about encouraging people to look at data centers as a career. So we have various different types of people tuning into our program. And this question has to do with the type of batteries, right? The lithium batteries we talked about. Are they like car batteries is the question. And what type of batteries would they happen to be like? Are they like deep cycle batteries? And how does that compare with other types of batteries is the question we have here.
Uh,
I mean,
well, they're definitely car batteries if you have an electric car. If you don't have an electric car, their chemical composition is completely different. It's a lithium. Lithium is an element, and the chemical reaction between lithium and ion is what discharges the DC current. In a lead acid battery, you have lead and acid, and it's that chemical combination that creates the energy. I'd like to go back to the question before that, just about International Data Center Day, in that if there's students out there, the data center industry is a fantastic industry to be in because it is pretty much recession proof. Even if you look at the present time, we're even through the COVID situation where many people lost their jobs and there was hardships for lots of people. Meetings like this require more and more compute power, and so the everything that you see that comes out, the new technology in transportation, it all touches a data center. When you Google something, when you Instagram, everything requires more zeros and ones. So this is a fantastic industry to be involved in, and there's all kinds of entry points, whether you're an architect, an engineer, an IT person. The list goes on and on. There's super opportunity in this industry, and we are so fortunate to be part of it. So I certainly want to make a point of, if you're looking at a career, there's excellent opportunities in this field because it is recession proof.
And there's paths, both through the traditional 4-year college path or through the trade school or military path. Folks that operate data centers need to have an understanding of how their UPS works, how their power distribution works, how their mechanical systems work, how their generator systems work. And if I were operating a data center, would absolutely 99 times out of 100 choose a person who came out of the military in a technical role, or choose a person who came out of trade school, than I would someone who came out of a traditional 4-year college. I'll hire that guy to sell the space, but in terms of operating my data center, trade schools are an extremely valuable place to put yourself if you're looking for a career in that field.
Right, and there are all sorts of careers in data centers, right? From security to operations to technical to networking to executives, managers, testing, anything, right? There's all sorts of careers in data centers, from entry level all the way and up to executive level for sure.
Out of the military who were being paid $50,000 a year at the end of their military career, who immediately stepped into $150,000 a year jobs in data centers.
Right.
It can be a very lucrative occupation.
Exactly.
Can we say that if anybody here watching is ever near Atlanta, Georgia, you're more than welcome to come into our office anytime. We'd be happy to sit with you, talk to you, give you a tour. Anything we can do to help you. It's a growth industry, and I want more and more people in it. I encourage my daughter to get into it all the time. Women are underrepresented right now in the industry, and I'm fixing to change that with at least one person in the next decade or so.
And the construction industry is also losing a lot of people. The construction industry needs young people, electrical, mechanical, plumbers, and they're all needed in the data center.
Right, right. Well, that pretty much brings us to a wrap of today's program. In the COVID time that we're in, not being able to offer in-person tours of data centers has certainly been a challenge. I applaud your ingenuity in being able to provide a virtual data center tour remotely with this level of detail and flexibility. I certainly felt like I went through a data center tour with you. And I thank you for that opportunity and for sharing it with our viewers out there. Hey guys, if you have any questions for CCI after today's program, please feel free to reach out to us. The team over at CCI has been terrific to work with, and we encourage you to ask any questions that you have. As you know, components are their specialty, and they work with quite a few vendors out there, and can certainly provide you with one-on-one feedback on how to help make the best decision for your facilities today into tomorrow. Thank you both for your time.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Thank you, everybody.